Welcome to the Monster in My Head show, a podcast where we talk to real people about the real insecurities and issues a lot of us face, as well as discuss unique ways to overcome them. I am your host, Bree, and I am so excited today to talk to you because we're not interviewing a guest, but I'm actually going to be talking directly to you about a subject that I am so passionate about, which is taking back power in your life. Oh my God, my favorite. Before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is inspired by my album release. The album is called Playing with Power. It's coming out on Friday, or most likely when you're watching this, it's already out. Everything we're going to be discussing in this episode, there is a song related to it in this album. The thing that I'm probably the most proud of in my life is the creation of this album, of this work, which is all about growth, all about overcoming trauma. And it's really wonderful. So if you want to take a listen to it, you can either pre-save or listen to it using the link in the bio, description, whatever it is at this point. I'd love for you to hear it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the episode. But today, yes, we're going to be talking about what it looks like to take back power in your life. So the reason why, before we get into all the tips, because there's 8 of them, and I think they're pretty good, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, besides obviously the whole album is based off of this, but I'm not even going to say a point in my life. For most of my life, I felt like I did not have power to change my circumstances. I did not have the power or the motivation to be joyful. I lived in pain for so long, and I thought that that was going to be the rest of my life because I had a relatively traumatic childhood in certain ways, suffered from PTSD and night terrors for a long time. And there was just a time in my life where I was like, it's never going to get better. Like I have no control over how much pain I'm in, how I experience it so often. And I kind of just thought that that was going to be my entire life. And then I discovered some of the things that I'm going to be talking about with you today. And it transformed my life to where now I feel so much joy and so much peace. And obviously that comes in waves, but it's become my baseline now. And that was through a tremendous amount of work. But what's so exciting about that is that it is possible. And so that's why I wanted to share this with you, is because I've been through it. I know what it's like to be at rock bottom, feeling so worthless and so unlovable and feeling like your life is falling apart. But I did want to share with you some of the ways that I learned how to overcome that to now be at a place where I experience joy on a regular basis rather than crippling depression. So without further ado, here are the 8 things that I discovered of how to take back the power in your life, make major changes in your life that need to be made in order to be happier. So the first tip I have is cultivating love for yourself. So I know for me, when I thought about when I was at my lowest, when I was experiencing depression, when I felt like I was a failure, I had tried a lot of things that didn't work. I felt like it reflected my value, and I felt washed up and burned out at like 20 years old. I had been working towards an artist career. It didn't work out the way that I wanted it to by a certain timeline, and it really defined my worth. And then what I was kind of thinking about in that place, I was like, I am so depressed. I'm so unhappy. How am I going to change this? And for a long time, I didn't know how, because I kept trying to shame and guilt myself into changing my mindset of just like, come on, just get over it. Get over it. You have to. And then I realized that the only way that I was going to make a sustained effort to change my life was to be motivated by my love for myself to do that. So it was kind of like I had to get to a point where I was like, I love myself too much to stay where I'm at right now. I love myself too much to continue in this mindset of shaming and guilting myself, or continue in this dead-end job. I care about myself and my future too much to be okay with that. And what I have found is that that creates a more sustainable motivation than shame or guilt ever will, because that comes in spurts, but then you will get burned out eventually. But if you are motivated to change your life and take back your power by a deep and unending love for yourself, that will never go away, because you're always going to be fighting for yourself. Obviously, that's, a lot easier said than done, but I think that's why that's the first step, is you have to cultivate a love for yourself that is so deep that it will then allow you to feel motivated to take the necessary steps in order to drastically change your life. The next step is to be very clear about the areas that are broken and also why they're broken. So something for me that I have done that has really helped me is I would sit down and look at the different areas of my life where I felt there was a problem. So for a long time, that was my perception of my career and the value that I attached to that. So I attached my value to my success or lack thereof in my career, and that was killing, like literally killing me. And so I sat down with myself and I wrote down, like, okay, I feel like a failure because I did not reach the level that I wanted to at a certain age in my career. But then I thought, okay, where does that come from though? Because everyone else that I talked to is like, you are not a failure at all. Like, you're a nice person, you're this, that, whatever. But I could not internalize that. But once I started, obviously doing also some really extensive therapy, which I highly recommend. Um, Doing extensive therapy as well as really taking a deep look at myself and my past, I realized that I grew up with a level of pressure that was very, very high. I grew up in a very tumultuous house in many ways. There was like a lot of like verbal abuse that I was witnessing and just an unhealthy dynamic. And so, because of that dynamic, pressure was put on me in order to kind of be the golden child, the perfect child, to in some ways distract from what was going on in the house. So, I internalized that pressure and then took that with me for decades after that. And so, once I realized that that's where that was coming from, I was like, okay, wait a minute. So, if this is coming from a place of brokenness, then maybe this belief about myself isn't true. If everyone else is saying that I am a successful person, that I am worthy of love and all this different stuff, but I can't see it, now I'm recognizing why I can't see it, and maybe I can start unworking that in my mind. So it came from understanding what the point of brokenness was and understanding why it was there in order to deal with the core of it rather than the symptoms. Because we can be like, or at least for me, I could be like, okay, I feel like a failure, so I need to do something that I can be successful at. But with that core, nothing I would do would be enough because it would be the mindset that would always trip me up. So identifying what's broken and then why that's there, and then starting to fix the core of the problem, and then you'll see changes in the symptoms as well. So the next step is to set achievable goals for yourself. This is super, super important because you're wanting to build a momentum in order to change your life in the way that you feel like you need to. So I know for me, when I was kind of dealing with this whole feeling of being a failure, I at first would kind of be like, all right, well, I need to like start a business, or I need to like do something that I can like really succeed at. But a lot of that would be outside of my control. Having a successful business, a lot of businesses fail. It would be dependent on the market, the idea, the partnerships, a lot of stuff would have to go right in order for that to be successful, which is fine. Love when we start businesses. But if I were to start my process of growing and, changing my life by creating goals that had outcomes that I specifically could not control completely, I was setting myself up for failure. So what I started doing was I started creating very small goals for myself that dealt with internal things. So for example, one of those things for me was whenever I started speaking to myself in a unkind way, I started being my own worst critic. That inner voice was saying like, you're such a failure, you're such a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. One of my goals was to stop that from happening and to imagine myself as the child that I used to be and say, would you speak to her that way? And I made it a goal that anytime that voice would come up, it would be immediately visualizing that child and doing that exercise. And that was something that I could control, and something I got actually very good at, to where now that voice is not even there anymore. That voice does not talk to me like that anymore. So when I achieved that small internal goal of something that I could control, that gave me the motivation and the momentum to start setting other internal goals. And then after I was able to kind of get my internal world figured out a little bit more, I then started making external goals of like, okay, well, I really would like to create a cool project. I'd like to make something. Again, things that were very dependent on my effort and ability alone. I needed stuff that I could control, because if it was, if it was anybody else that had a hand in it, that would allow a room for error that could then kind of put my growth process, on kilter, off kilter. So I started with the internal goals and then moving into external goals, things that I could control. And then after that, I'm kind of still in that process right now, to be honest, but I have a feeling that as I continue to grow, now that there's stability in my external and internal world, I can start seeing a little bit more in the future and be like, okay, in my future, this is what I want. And yes, it's dependent on a lot of things happening correctly. But this is kind of what I'm aiming for. The fourth step is recognizing that this is a messy process. As you get started in making major changes in your life, you are not going to do it perfectly. There is no perfect way to do it. What I recognize for myself is that as I started to drastically change my mindset about myself, about my life, about the things that I wanted, a lot of stuff would come up. Therapy was a very good thing for me because that's where I could healthily release a lot of pain that I've been holding on to for a very long time. And it was very messy. And it caused me in some ways and sometimes to act in ways that I would regret later or say things that I didn't mean or whatever. But I had to give myself enough grace to realize that the process of healing and growing into the person that you want to become is not going to be a clean process. It's very, very messy. But that means you're doing something right. And with that, don't let a mistake derail you. Because the process is messy, you're going to make mistakes. We hear this a lot with people who struggle with addiction, specifically that, but also in a lot of different areas where, again, the process is messy. So there might be times where you mess up, where you go back, where you start thinking the way you were thinking before. But I think it's all about cultivating a sense of awareness to where you realize that you've done that. And you're like, okay, I messed up. That's okay. But I am going to move forward and I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep going. Don't let a mistake derail you. The next tip is to change your mindset. It's to get excited about the process. When you are approaching a life change, it can be freaking scary as shit. You can be like, oh my God, I have to change my entire life because everything I'm doing right now is not working. Oh no. But the thing is that if you're able to see this change as something that's so incredibly exciting, it's something that you get to do, not that you have to do. I know for me, when I recognized that I couldn't keep living the way that I was living, I recognized that if I came at it as, oh my God, I have to change my life or I'm going to, do something that I can't come back from, that was very daunting to me. But once I started changing my mindset of like, hold on, okay, I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I get the opportunity to take myself from a place that has caused me so much pain and lovingly move myself into a better position. I get the opportunity to grow and become the best version of myself. I get the opportunity to work on becoming mentally healthy, of getting rid of my pain and my trauma that has been running my life up to this point. That is so exciting. I know for me, I honestly see the purpose of my life as becoming the best version of myself in every sense of the word. That is physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, relationally, socially, all of it. So for me, setting that as my purpose gave me something to work towards. Especially if you're like me and if you came from a place of religion and maybe are either deconstructing or leaving or questioning or whatever, your sense of purpose has been derailed. So I think that actually might be a little sub thing underneath the changing your mindset. I think it's creating a sense of purpose for yourself. And for me, the sense of purpose of becoming the best version of myself and realizing what an honor it is to be able to do that is what really helped me get from a dark place and then gave me the motivation to really work towards the place that I'm at now. Sixth tip, oh, that's hard to say. The sixth tip is to surround yourself with people who are going to encourage and inspire you in the process. So we are the company we keep, right? I've heard that quote before. And it makes sense. If you are surrounding yourself with people who are doing drugs or people who don't have a lot of direction in their life or are very negative, it's going to make sense that you are also going to be like that or have been like that. Being around those people and being in contact with those people is not going to get you anywhere. It's going to continue to pull you down. And especially what I've found, people who are like that, and are not wanting to change their own life, they're maybe not at that place yet. they can sometimes get really threatened when you start making big changes in your life. They'll see you working towards having a better life, and it points out to them that they are not doing that work within themselves, whether it be because they're scared, they're not motivated, they don't care, whatever, doesn't matter. But sometimes people like that can see that, and they can then start trying to drag you down back to their level because it makes them feel better about themselves. So it's really important that if you are starting the process of making a major change in your life, that you are surrounding yourself with people who are going to inspire you, who are going to encourage you, and also who are going to hold you accountable. And if you don't have people like that in your life naturally, getting a therapist, and if you can't afford a therapist, totally makes sense, totally okay, journal about it. Make new friends, but more importantly, cut out those other people. Even if you have to do this process alone, it is better for you to do it alone than to be surrounded with people who are just going to bring you down. And what's amazing about it too, at least what I found, is that as I started cutting people out of my life who are not helping me stay on the path of continuing to change my life for the better, new people came into my life. I started meeting new people in different places that I would go who I would connect to on this level because they, if you know, want to use a new age term, had a higher vibration. I was kind of attracted to those people and they were attracted to me, and we were able to grow together. Community is super, super important. So whatever you can do to cultivate a positive and loving community around yourself as you're going through this growth process, the better you're going to be. The seventh tip is to cultivate gratefulness. When you're making a major life change, it is very easy to wallow in self-pity and to wallow in your pain and be like, this is so hard. Like, why am I so broke? I know that was the main thing for myself, is that I felt like I was digging into my bullshit and digging into my trauma and being like, there's so much here. Oh my God. I was like, I kept digging and I was like, why is there so much here? And it would be very discouraging. And then it would be very easy to fall into, oh, it's just so hard. Why is this happening to me? All this different stuff. That shit is not going to help you. That is just going to bring you down and make the process a lot more miserable. So the more that you can cultivate gratefulness about the things in your life, you know, and they can be little things. I know for myself, when it was really bad, I was like, I am still alive. I'm still alive. Like, oh, that's awesome. You know, I have a roof over my head. I have food that I can eat. I have people who love me. And even if those are the only things that I had at that moment, I could identify the small things that I had. I can go outside. I can breathe air. I can be in nature whenever I want. I have a car that I can drive to go wherever I want to go, or public transportation. I have legs. I can walk. I can see. And even if you can't do any of those things, you're alive. And I know it sounds crazy, but like, I think this whole thing of recognizing what a gift life is and how you only get one of them, and then that's it. I even got this poster, and it's a little bit morbid, but I got this poster that lists out the weeks of an average person's life, about like 80 years worth of weeks. And I marked them off to show where I'm at in that time. And I'm like, holy shit, that's as much as I have here. And when it's over, it's over. So the more that you can be grateful for the life that you have, again, be grateful for the fact that you get to go through this process of becoming the person that you want to be, that you still have enough breath in your lungs and enough life in your body to be able to do that. Man, if you can think that way, change your perspective, this process will be a lot easier for you. And the eighth and final tip is to remember that things do get better. I know for me, when I was in the worst of it, when I was in rock bottom, feeling so unlovable for so long, feeling like such a failure, feeling so scared to open up to people, to be vulnerable, to be honest, dealing with a lot of self-hatred and questions about why I was even here. It felt like it would never get better. It was like, because I kept going into that place of pain and sadness and all this different stuff. But then once I started this process of making major changes in my life, I would have moments where I'd be kind of okay. And then it would go back down, and then it'd be super hard again. But then I would work my way back up, and then I'd be okay again. I'd be okay for a little bit longer. And then something else would come up. So I feel like I am a testament to the fact that it does get better. I still have my problems. I still have pain. I still have things that I'm dealing with. But I was at a depth that I didn't think I would ever be able to get out of. And now I'm not anymore. Now I feel like I'm at a neutral ground of contentment and gratefulness for my life that I can then build from there rather than starting from the depths like I was at before. So just remember that as you're going through the difficult things you're going through, working through this stuff and trying to become the best person that you can, it does get better. There is a term in Eastern philosophy called samskaras, which is, and I'm going to probably butcher this definition, but it's basically that when something happens to you, if you are not able to kind of let it happen and let go of it, that energy gets stored within you. And when it comes up, pain or what sadness, whatever, then we push it down, but that energy is still there. The way that I'm starting to see my life and the way that many people see their lives is that our life, all it's doing is it's aiming to bring that stuff up so that we can let it go. So for me, anytime I'm feeling anxiety or feeling sadness randomly come up, what I try to do now is I try to be like, okay, this is something I must have been storing. I'm so grateful for the fact that this is coming up, that this situation that I'm in is bringing this up within me, because that means that I can let this go and I don't have to let it bother me anymore. I truly believe life is for us rather than against us, and that all the universe, God, whatever is trying to do is to help us let go of the things we've been holding on to and live a life of being present and aware and just grateful for this beautiful thing that we call life. So those are my 8 tips, but I do want to kind of end before we talk about the album. I want to just say that if you are going through a very difficult time where you are wondering if you're going to get through it, if you are in a lot of pain right now, just know that you are not alone. A lot of us go through that. A lot of us are still in that. But the main thing to remember is that it absolutely can get better no matter where you're at, no matter what's going on. I truly believe that we create the reality that we experience. Obviously, there are really bad things that happen. There are very bad environments to be in, but sometimes all we can control is our inner world. So the more that we can change our perspective to be one of having a growth mindset, of being positive, of moving forward, I feel like the better our life can be and will be. It can't get any worse, right? So just know that you're not alone. It does get better, and there is hope on the other side. If you want to listen to the album, the songs in this album called Playing with Power talks all about this. It's literally been so insane. This album has been like my journey into freedom. I started this album in a place where I was striving to be really successful and to, make my name known and to try to validate myself using the world and worldly success. And then as I was doing this album, I was literally working through stuff as I was creating this album, going through intensive EMDR therapy, working through my pain. And it resulted in a project that I am so beyond proud of. One that represents my journey into healing, that has taken 28 years of my life to get to. And I created a visual album with it. There's music videos for every single song. There's this podcast. I'm actually finishing up a book now, that's kind of a artistic representation of that journey into my subconscious mind. And I'm really, really proud of this work. So hopefully, if you choose to listen to it, hopefully it can be encouragement to you to hear someone's journey. Again, the fact that it's possible. And hopefully also you just like the music, because I think it's pretty cool. So if you want to listen to it, the link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, just know that you are loved, that you are cared for, that you are worth the work that it's going to take to get to the place you want to get to, and that you're going to be okay. Anyway, that's all for me. I will see you next week.